Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here with my next Avatar video. This will be my next Legacy of Yangchen chapter analysis video, and this one's going to be for chapter 12, The Duel. Very important chapter here. Finally, the unanimity members are kind of like reintroduced properly. This is the chapter where Yangchen, obviously in the middle of the action, has dealt with the rock slide. Now she can actually go and figure out what combination of them is out, what's the specifics of what's actually going on here, because she's dealt with them before, but she did it like through stealth, and we saw how dangerous the kind of more direct confrontation with Ying Su was. So how's it going to go this time out? And so that's what happens here as we kind of start off this chapter. It's about that kind of question of like, because of the way that she's been kind of hiding the unanimity members in the Northern Air Temple, they're all separated out. Like, they're not in the temple itself. They're in kind of three isolated huts dotted throughout the range outside the temple. So it's more in the mountain range here rather than directly the temple itself. So she has to choose which one she's going to go to first, and it's a pretty important choice to make, because she could end up with the one where there's the most action going on. She could end up at a place where maybe they've managed to contain one of the combustion benders in a specific hut. We just don't know yet what the situation is. So Yangchen makes the choice here that she is going to go for Ying Su's hut. She just feels like this is the right choice. And I think for anyone who's read the first book in any sense of detail, this makes a little bit of sense, because in a way, Ying Su kind of owes Yangchen one for saving her life with how the incident in the first book actually resolved itself. So if there's any one of these three characters where she has at least a tiny bit of a relationship with, it is Ying Su. And so she heads there on Nujian to the hut where Ying Su is. But as she arrives there, she of course can see the kind of the smoke, the fire kind of billowing out of the area. Something has happened here. And initially from a distance, it looks like it's Ying Su trying to make some sort of a escape attempt, because she's got like a chokehold around one of the air nomads. And then the five other guards, because there are 6 airbenders covering each unanimity member. The other 5 seem like motionless just on the rocks nearby, like they've been killed. And so Yangchen is furious and does this like crazy air meteorite dive like down to absolutely kind of annihilate Ying Su. But she redirects last second because she spots the kind of gesture, the motion that Ying Su is doing, that she's not directly attacking the airbender. She actually just has her like hand up to her lip here, like as in shh, be quiet. And she notices that, oh, the bodies, everyone is still alive. She's not actually like hurting the person she has a chokehold around. She's trying to keep that person quiet. And then the other 5 are kind of acting dead basically to avoid being like attacked again. So it's become clear here that Ying Su hasn't kind of like combustion bent her way out and is trying to make her escape. No, Ying Su is kind of trying to protect the air nomads, because they're under attack from one of the other combustion benders. So what's happened here is the real question, and that's exactly what Yangchen is asking here. Just like, wait, what's going on here? And Ying Su immediately begins to speak, and it's like, Thoppa's somewhere on the other side of the valley. He probably already got Zhao Yun, and now he's trying to kill me. And it's like, whoa, what? And you know, the reality of it is that, like, this is correct. Like, Zhao Yun has been killed already at this point. We will get that confirmed in the next chapter, but, like, as it's said here, she is correct. Like, that is what is actually happening here. Thoppa has, for some reason, decided that it should only be him. And he's targeted Zhao Yun first, and they haven't been able to stop that. And now we're in the process of him trying to kill Ying Su. So Yangchen has no clue why this is happening here. So she calls over Nujian, but Ying Su's like, no, don't do that. Don't give him a giant furry target, basically. So instead, Yangchen decides that, okay, Don't come directly over to us. Nujon, you go over there, kind of at the end of a path, you know, get into position kind of quickly, silently. I need to get my fellow air nomads out of this mess. Like, because of course Yangchen blames herself for what's happening here. She needs to make sure she doesn't lose any of her brothers in what's happening here. So this is where we get the kind of first moment of like, okay, they're under attack here. Attacks are coming in any second, all over the place. So what Yangchen is, they're up against a wall, basically, a rock. Yangchen does some crazy earthbending here, where she splits the rock in two and makes these two basically giant plates of earth to act as cover. So effectively, you know, she has these kind of two giant kind of things of cover, and she sends one off in one direction, one spinning off in another direction. And the idea is that underneath one is the 6 airbenders, and underneath the other is Ying Su and Yangchen, hoping to like force Thapa to choose one or the other. And he ends up choosing to target Yangchen and Ying Su. So it means the airbenders do manage to get away. They get on Nujon, and Nujon gets them away. So that's good. The other plates, basically, they're just trying to get cover as they get to some actually like decent cover that's actually built into the mountainside. But it's going to be too long of a gap. So what they do is Yangchen kind of has them both kind of fall into this kind of like ditch that you can't quite fully make out because there's some kind of like forest kind of vegetation cover. But the plate continues on. So to anyone from a distance, it looks like you've just used the cover of this earth plate to get into the kind of interior kind of cover, when actually Yangchen and Ying Su are kind of basically lying in the grass, basically a bit before that. So this is their kind of clever way to distract him and stay out of his range and cover. So at this point, we basically get into more of the detailed kind of like conversation here, as you know, they're kind of like, whoa, what's going on here? Is he done? Is there a reason why he's maybe stopped to take a break? But the point here is just that this is getting across the dynamic between these two. Yangchen's just like, it's ironic. Not too long ago, you were the one who actually got closest to killing me. If only I'd succeeded, then I wouldn't be trapped here. So that's the kind of dynamic that they have going on. And she just notes how boring it was, kind of being here up in the mountains. She nearly set her own hair on fire out of boredom. And Yangchen thinks to herself, you should have developed a hobby like Thapa did with the kind of gardening. But they do need to address some issues here. Of like, one, okay, how do you know specifically it's Thapa firing on you and not Zhao Yun? And she's like, blast pattern, but personality-wise, Thapa's always been a backstabbing, rat-lick son of a worm. I warned your flyboys as soon as I heard the first explosion. So Yangchen is kind of like, oh, wow. And that's quite a turn for you, you know. She actually laughs at this in a way of just like, she's like, oh wow, you're actually protecting us now. That's an interesting turn of events. But she actually says that like, oh, I just remember noting that like Chaisi picked a bad name for you three, unanimity, and Ying Su kind of returns with, code names don't work if they contain meaning about their subject. They tossed out Skyflower and Drumbeat for that very reason. So they were the previous kind of code names for it before they decided on something a little bit more mysterious, which obviously makes a little bit more sense. And then we get into the very interesting part of this discussion. Ying Su mentions that, like, oh, she's just frustrated that this is the way things have panned out. This whole scheme was busted from the beginning. Ever since I got off that ship and saw Hancha's stupid grinning face. So this was when the unanimity members arrived at Bin in the first book. And Yangchen's just like, oh, you weren't supposed to see Hansha. So obviously, like, we know this, but like Yangchen and everyone, they don't know the huge specifics of this kind of situation. So Yangchen's trying to get some information here. And Ying Su says, no, we were originally going to deploy in. She stops because they've all been silent. She's got nothing out of any of the combustion benders the whole time they've been here. And Ying Su is just like, oh yeah, I'm not meant to tell you anything. But then she thinks to herself that, wait, protecting their information has got me nowhere. And look at the situation I'm in, where like, apparently my own teammate is trying to kill me. I have to ingratiate myself to the Avatar here. I'm just going to actually be open about this. So she says, no, The plan was always to make a mess out of Taku, not Bin-er. We had maps of the city memorized and everything. So the question, of course, is why did you switch it up? And so this is where we get the whole Kalyan kind of coming up. We had a date we were supposed to ship out, but the boss came along and said we were shipping out early, way early. So we know the boss is the name that Kalyan goes by as the kind of leader of kind of like Chai Si's errand runners, basically. The association, I think it was called, in the first book. But Yangchen wants to confirm this. Was the boss a water tribe man with 8 fingers? And Ying Su's like, no, wait, actually. So that explains why he always wore gloves even though it was very hot. How did you know? And so, of course, she knows this because Kavik gave her the information on Kalyan. So the key question now is, what date were you meant to ship out for your actual mission? Well, what date were you meant to be in Taku for? So she gets the date, and it confirms what Yangchen had suspected. The day was the same day as the end of the convocation. Now, the convocation in Taku is, of course, the big meeting that we're kind of building towards, which is where all of the Zongdus, as well as all of the world leaders, are going to meet to discuss basically the current status of like the Platinum Affair and the Shang City kind of situations, and just kind of confirm, like, you know, this is what we're doing. Here's any changes that need to be made at this big meeting. It's like the only time each year that the world leaders and the Zongdus ever actually meet up. So this is the confirmation that Chai Si, her plan to deploy unanimity was to strike against this big world leader meeting. And this is a much, much, much better plan, Yangchen notes, than whatever Han Shou was trying to do with his whole siege guarding the city. That, sure, that was a powerful deployment to a certain degree, but it had no strategy behind it or vision into the future. It was never going to work because it relied on 3 people kind of holding the line against like an incredible amount of people, and it was just never going to work. Whereas Chai Si's plan is much more well thought out in terms of it's just, we will deploy them, it will be a single strike, and in one strike we will basically eliminate all the world leaders. That's this like perfect way to use combustion bending, is that, you know, especially like at that time when no one knew combustion benders existed like at all. Imagine just big world leader meeting and then suddenly an explosion just goes off and everyone's killed. Like, it would be kind of basically untraceable. Like, it would be like impossible to almost find out what the details of that were. So it speaks to like how incredible like the skill actually is if used carefully. Especially with the idea of like they had 3 combustion benders to do this with. So even if the first one didn't do everything, they had 2 more straight away, plus reloads effectively to get everything done. So this is the thing we're building towards in this book, is that Chai Si still has her plan. She's trying to, of course, get unanimity back, and that meeting's coming up. So because she doesn't know that that information has been leaked, like the plan hasn't been made, basically. So that's a key thing in the book. Ying Su actually deciding to basically side with Yangchen a little bit here, give up this information, is something that very few other people kind of can account for. And as we'll kind of see as the book progresses, it's quite a clever kind of move on Yangchen's part, what actually happens. But this is where Ying Su decides that, wait, we have to get down to business of what's actually happening here. And that is, are you going to take out Thapa, or am I going to have to do it? And Yangchen's thinking like, wait, are you asking me to do the take the air out of the room situation? One, I can't really do it because like we're just out in the open. But then she thinks like, oh wait, I never did that technique on Ying Su. She doesn't know about it. So she's asking me to basically kill Thapa. And it's basically the question of like, who's going to do it, you or me? And Yangchen's just like, wait, I need him alive. Ying Su counters, you only need one of us alive. And I'm talking to you, I'm giving you information. Thapa is basically an awful, terrible person. You don't need him when you have me who is cooperating with you. This solves all of your problems. It is a simple equation here. make the decision, Avatar, basically. She even says, Thoppa's not a misunderstood pawn. He's a piece of filth and a loose end. Elevate me for a clear shot, and I can make sure he never hurts anyone again. So Ying Su's plan is just basically, you airbend me up in the air above his position, I'll prepare a shot and fire it from the air and get him. And that should end it. But Yangchen is hesitating here, because this is a plan that will result in someone dying. That there's no way to do a combustion blast that is non-lethal, basically. And if you try to maybe like hit it like a little bit further away, so he only gets hit with the knockback, then you risk not actually ending the situation here. Like, what if it doesn't like knock him out? What if it's not perfectly timed to knock him out? He can just fire again. So it has to kind of be a kill shot here, or there's no point of them doing anything. And there's no time as well to discuss this, because they both then notice that who's arriving onto the scene. Ming-Yu on his glider is arriving on the scene here. He's done what he needs to do, and now he's coming in here to try and help out. But of course, he doesn't know the full situation here of like he's going to become a target for Thoppa. So Yangchen has like seconds to decide what to do here. And the Ying Su is basically like, throw me up there, or you go after Thoppa. One of these two things kind of needs to happen here. But Yangchen is like, no, I need to save him. But Ying Su notes, he is the distraction that we need. Either he dies alone and buys us the chance to live, or all three of us go down. You know what you have to do. But Ying Su's kind of holding Yangchen back here from jumping up into the air, because Ying Su's logic is that like he's flying into the path of basically a blast that's about to come in here that he's not prepared for. You jump up to try and save him, both of you are getting hit. And as Yangchen actually jumps up into the air, she notes that like she has made a very bad choice here, because in jumping up, of course, she and Ming-Yu are probably going to get hit. But also, Thoppa will then be able to trace back down the path Yangchen jumped from and go after Ying Su as well. So has she actually just killed them all in this situation here? And she notes that it was this kind of ultimate pointless act doing what she was doing, but she had to try and save her brother here. And this is all coming from a sense of like she feels she has put the Northern Air Temple at risk here, and that any air nomad who gets hurt here is completely on her. She doesn't want to make that happen at all. So it's just kind of noted here as she jumps up into the air, she's kind of almost like trapped, because she's not in the avatar stage. So she's in that kind of middle position where like she's high up, capable of doing something, but she's going to fall down again. And she can see kind of Thoppa from this elevated position, grinning, like knowing that he has the advantage. But also she knows she's kind of sealed Ying Su's fate as well in doing this. And it's this kind of poetic moment here as the blast is about to come in. And it's like, Drumbeat would have been a very nice name, as the pop pop comes in, referencing the drumbeat, of course. Then the visuals of the combustion blast come in, and she's like, Skyflower, a fine choice as well. I can't protect them all. It was a mistake to believe that she ever could. And it's just noted that as the fire bloomed in the air, wrapping the side of the valley in light like a sunrise, Yangchen was left with one final thought, that things might have been different if she had her glider. So that is where the chapter ends. And what is so interesting about this chapter is we don't directly follow up in terms of what actually happens here. In terms of the direct result, what Yangchen does, how this combustion blast like specifically resolves itself. We don't really get the details on this. We are going to catch up with the sort of overall, after the fact, net result of who's made it out of this, and so on. But we won't get the specifics of what happened in the air as that blast came in until much, much, much later on in the book. And it's a very interesting choice by the writer to do this, because this is kind of in a way one of the surprises, in a way, the kind of spoilers to a certain degree in the book is like what specifically happens up here, because there's actually quite a few secrets in a way almost kind of hidden that relate to this kind of sequence, but the way the next chapter is done, it kind of is interesting, because you almost immediately are almost tricked into forgetting, because you get the resolution and it kind of feels like, oh, that's how it resolved itself. But then there's more to it, and it's very, very interesting overall, the decision being made here. But it is one of these kind of uniquely structured kind of plot moments where this is FCE's way of kind of like hiding and waiting on a reveal later on in the book. So this is one of those ones to remember. But yeah, overall, I think it's a really good chapter. Nice action, just highlighting the challenge constantly faced when you are dealing with a combustion bender, especially a combustion bender in a good position, like having basically an entire kind of cliff face. Because I think that's at one point in the chapter they describe it, that basically Thapa is just on the kind of top of a hill, just peeking out over the top, and he has all the kind of slope on the other side that everyone can't see to kind of retreat back into. So he's in an absolutely perfect position, and this is why like Ying Su isn't firing back up at him, because she's never going to hit him in the position that they're in, the angles and the way it all works. Thapa just has like the perfect position to actually fire on Ying Su and Yangchen. But it is the right choice as well to characterize Ying Su more, because she was the one who got the little bit of more kind of normal characterization in the first book, whereas Thapa straight away is being presented in this chapter as being very similar to the way he was with like Han She in the first book, of like always trying to make a deal of like, I'll betray you unless you pay me all this money, and that's just the way he is. Interesting. Plus, you know, he killed the other combustion bender, Zhao Yun. Now, admittedly, Zhao Yun was the one where like he was not characterized at all, but in terms of like it being super important, like the positioning of all these combustion benders, the fact that we go through this chapter and kind of find out for sure that like one of them has been killed, and then Thapa's out to kill the other one, and the ending of this chapter is basically like, and the resolution to this realistically is Thapa takes out Yangchen and Mingyu in the air, and then takes out Ying Su. It's kind of like, do we end this chapter with only one combustion bender left, is the kind of real question, which is a crazy thought, like, heading into this book, that like, did anyone expect this to go this way? Because you think about the situation overall, and it's, well, Han She was assassinated by Kalyan, so Kalyan is orchestrating this. That's what we learned in the previous chapter. And now, obviously, he has done something to assist with Thapa, I suppose, getting out in some way. So, did the order about what Thapa did, is it purely his own actions, or was he told to do this maybe by Kalyan? And then how does this all kind of link into everything else? There's some questions, of course, still to be addressed here. But of course, remember, the letter, like I talked about, kind of ultimately comes from Thapa, which we'll learn about shortly. But anyway, interesting kind of a sequence here, as a lot of stuff in the book begins to come together. And of course, we're at roughly the 1/3 way through the book here, and it makes sense that like we have hit a huge kind of action set piece moment in all of this. And yeah, it's nice to get more characterization on Ying Su. Yangchen also being put in a position where like she is hesitating of like making these choices that will get people killed. Ying Su even saying hesitation gets people killed, and her kind of realizing that like, oh yeah, this has come up so many times in the lives of past avatars, in my own life. It is absolutely true, and she has to make some sort of a decision, but the decision she ends up making is this kind of very emotional decision here to go up after Mingyu, when in terms of full kind of like battlefield kind of strategy, what Ying Su is saying probably is the more logical thing to do overall, but Yangchen can't bring herself to kind of sacrifice a fellow air nomad like that. So she makes the human choice here. She to kind of in a way choose to make a mistake here, and that's a really important thing in terms of her characterization in the book as well. That she's been exploring the idea of, you know, why do humans make the decisions that she makes, and then here she is making a decision like that herself. She isn't perfect. The people around her aren't perfect, and that's part of the whole dynamic here. So a very, very strong chapter here, especially with how it like connects, and there's secrets in this chapter that we'll come back to. But for now, that has been chapter 12, The Duel. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts were, but that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.